The night was quiet in the Texas countryside, the kind of silence only broken by the distant hum of crickets and the rustling of cornfields swaying under the moonlight. But that silence was about to be shattered. Just beyond the fences of a small farm, headlights cut through the dark. A convoy of black SUVs rolled slowly down the dirt road, their engines growling like predators closing in on prey. Inside, armed men loaded their rifles, their faces masked, their tattoos bearing the mark of one of the most feared Mexican cartels. They thought tonight would be simple. A raid. A scare. A message. Just another lonely farmer to push aside and take land from. What they didn't know was that this wasn't just any farmer. This land belonged to John Matthews, once the most lethal and respected commander in Delta Force history. A man who had led missions the world would never know about. A man who had faced warlords, terrorists, and armies and walked away. But after decades of service, John had retired to this quiet farm, seeking peace, planting crops, raising cattle, and keeping his demons buried deep. Until tonight. The cartel had no idea the man they were about to cross had been trained to dismantle entire armies with fewer resources than what they brought. John woke instantly. Years of combat had trained his senses. Even asleep, his body reacted to danger before his mind fully registered it. His dog, Bear, growled low near the door. Through the window, John saw shadows moving along the fence line, figures creeping with the arrogance of men who thought themselves invincible. For a brief second, he closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He didn't want this life anymore. He wanted peace. But some battles find you, no matter how far you run. He moved silently, retrieving a shotgun from behind the door, and another rifle from the hidden compartment under the floorboard. Every weapon was clean, oiled, ready. His late wife, Sarah, had once begged him to put them all away. But John had always known one day he might need them again. Tonight proved him right. The cartel soldiers spread out, moving toward the barn and the farmhouse. They kicked down gates, shouting in Spanish, mocking laughter filling the night. "Burn it," one of them ordered. "Send a message." But before they could light a match, the first shot cracked through the dark. One man dropped instantly. Panic spread. The others spun around, trying to find where the shot had come from. John moved like a ghost in the fields, every step calculated, every breath controlled. His years in Delta Force hadn't faded, they had only been waiting. He disarmed one attacker with brutal precision, his movements silent and merciless. To them, it must have felt like they were being hunted by something inhuman. By the time the cartel realized they weren't raiding a farmer but fighting a soldier beyond their understanding, it was too late. Half their men were down. The rest fled to their SUVs, tires kicking dirt as they sped off into the night. But John knew this was only the beginning. Cartels don't forgive. They return stronger. The following days tested John in ways even war hadn't. He tried to keep the attack quiet, but neighbors had seen the fire, heard the gunfire. The sheriff came asking questions, and though he respected John, he warned him. "These aren't people you scare off once. They'll come back. And they'll bring hell with them." John looked at his fields, his home, the land he and Sarah had built together. He wasn't leaving. But what haunted him most wasn't the cartel, it was his daughter, Emily. She had returned home after college, planning to help on the farm. Bright, stubborn, and compassionate, she believed in her father but didn't yet know the depths of his past. When she saw the bullet holes in the barn, her voice cracked with fear. "Dad, what are you mixed up in?" John couldn't bring himself to tell her the full truth, that he had once led men into battles so dark, they weren't even recorded in military history. That he was, in fact, one of the deadliest commanders to ever wear the Delta patch. Instead, he simply said, "I fought to protect people, Emily. And I'll fight again if I have to. But I won't let them take this farm. I won't let them take you." The cartel returned, as expected. This time with more men, more firepower, and fury. They attacked at dawn, thinking surprise would be on their side. But John had spent days preparing. He rigged traps, reinforced the barn, and set up defensive positions like he was back in a combat zone. When they came, the farm became a battlefield. Explosions rocked the fields. Gunfire echoed across the valley. Emily hid inside, terrified, but she could hear her father outside, calm, commanding, unshaken. It wasn't just about survival anymore. This was war. One by one, the cartel fell. Their arrogance was no match for John's precision in tactics. Every move he made was calculated, every shot purposeful. By the end, the survivors fled back to Mexico, whispering about El Fantasma, the ghost who had defended his land like a one-man army. But even after victory, John faced his greatest challenge, explaining it all to Emily. She found him sitting on the porch after the battle, his hands trembling, not from fear, but from the weight of everything he had tried to leave behind. "Dad," she whispered, tears streaming. "You're not just a farmer, are you?" He looked at her, eyes heavy with years of unspoken pain. "I'm a man who's done things I never wanted you to know about. I was a soldier, Emily. I was a commander in Delta Force. And I've taken more lives than I care to admit. But everything I've ever done was to protect something worth living for. And that's you. This farm. Our life." Emily hugged him tightly, her tears soaking his shirt. "Then we'll protect it together." The story of John Matthews spread quietly across the town, though never in the headlines. Those who knew whispered that the cartel wouldn't dare return, not after the ghost of Delta Force showed them what true war looked like. John went back to his crops, his cattle, and his peace. But something had changed. Emily saw her father not just as the quiet man who raised her, but as a protector who had sacrificed everything for others. And John, for the first time, began to forgive himself for the battles of the past. Because this battle, defending his home and his daughter, was one he could finally feel proud of. Message to viewers. Life often puts us in battles we never asked for. But courage, love, and resilience can turn even the darkest nights into victories worth remembering. John's story reminds us that no matter what we've faced in the past, our greatest strength lies in protecting the ones we love and standing firm for what truly matters. If you found this story powerful, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Comment below, what would you do if you were in John's place? And if you enjoy emotional, inspiring stories like this, make sure to subscribe to my channel. Be kind always. Your support helps us keep sharing stories that touch hearts and remind us all to stay strong, stay kind, and never give up.